The war had finally ended, but the land still carried the scars. The sky above was dark with smoke, and broken ships floated in silence like ghosts of fallen warriors. The ground was torn, filled with craters, fire, and the smell of burned metal. No laughter, no music, no voice of joy could be heard, only the quiet echo of destruction. Daniel, a human soldier, stood in the middle of those ruins. His armor was scratched, his helmet broken, and his face covered in dust. His body was tired, but his spirit refused to fall. He had survived battles that had killed thousands of his brothers and sisters. He had walked through fire, through loss, through nights when he thought humanity would not live to see another dawn. Now, for the first time, the battlefield was silent. No alien ships attacked from above. No enemy soldiers rushed forward with sharp blades and cruel eyes. The human armies had fought hard, and the war seemed finished. Yet Daniel's heart could not rest. He felt as if the ashes around him still hid something alive. He tightened his grip on his rifle and scanned the ruins. His ears caught a soft sound. Steps, slow and steady, moving closer. His heart began to beat faster. Could it be one last alien warrior? A desperate fighter seeking revenge? From the smoke, a figure appeared. Daniel narrowed his eyes. At first he thought it was only another survivor, maybe a human soldier. But as the smoke cleared, he saw her. Tall, graceful, wearing silver robes that glimmered even through the dirt. Her skin was pale, her hair long and shining like white silk, and her eyes were not human. They glowed softly like two stars holding both sadness and pride. Daniel's breath caught in his chest. He knew who she was. The enemy had spoken of her in whispers, and even humans had heard the stories. She was Princess Araya, the heir of the alien empire that had once sought to burn Earth. She was the daughter of their great ruler, the voice of a people who had called humans weak and unworthy of the stars. Yet now she did not walk like a ruler. She did not stand tall with arrogance. Every step she took seemed heavy, as if she carried the weight of her destroyed kingdom on her shoulders. Daniel raised his weapon, his voice sharp. "Stay where you are." The princess did not stop. She kept walking, her silver robes dragging against the ashes until she stood only a few steps away from him. Then, to Daniel's shock, she lowered her head. Her hands pressed together, and slowly, very slowly, she bowed before him. Daniel froze. His mind refused to believe what his eyes were seeing. The princess of a proud and mighty empire was bowing before a single human soldier. His voice broke the silence. "What are you doing?" Her voice came soft, but it carried across the ruined field like a song of sorrow. "I am Princess Araya. My people are gone. My throne is nothing but ashes. I have no kingdom left to rule. I do not come as your enemy. I bow not as a ruler, but as someone who asks for acceptance." Her words hit Daniel harder than any weapon. He felt anger rise in him, but also something else, confusion, pity, even pain. He remembered the screams of his comrades, the sight of cities burning, the sound of children crying when the alien fleets attacked Earth. And now, here stood the princess of those very invaders, bowing before him like a beggar. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. His rifle trembled in his hands and his heart pounded in his chest. The battlefield was silent, but inside him a storm was rising. He did not know whether to turn away in disgust, to shout in rage, or to listen. But one thing he knew: this moment was unlike anything he had ever lived through. The alien princess had bowed before a human, and with that single act, the story of the galaxy had changed. Daniel's arms grew heavy as he held the rifle pointed at her. The weapon that had given him strength during the long war now felt useless in his hands. He had faced alien warriors with claws, machines with fire, and fleets that darkened the skies. None of them had made him feel as confused as he did now. The princess did not move. Her head was still bowed, her silver hair falling over her face. Her body trembled, but not with fear. It was sorrow, deep sorrow, the kind that comes when everything you love is gone. Daniel's voice came out harsh, though inside he was struggling. Why bow to me? To a human? Your people never respected us. You called us weak. You tried to burn our world. And now you kneel before me?" Slowly she lifted her face. Her eyes shone with unshed tears, though her voice did not break. "Because I have nothing left, soldier. I cannot return to my people. They are dust among the stars. My father is dead, my empire is broken. What remains of us will never rise again, and I am alone." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He wanted to hate her. He wanted to remember his fallen friends, the comrades buried beneath alien fire. Yet in her trembling voice there was no pride, no arrogance, only pain. The princess took a slow breath. You ask why I bow before a human? I will tell you. When we fought you, we believed you would fall quickly. We believed your kind would kneel as slaves before us. But you did not. You fought with strength we never understood. Even when your cities burned, you stood again. Even when your fleets broke, you built new ones. You humans endure, you rise. That is what I cannot. That is what I need. Daniel's hands shook around the rifle. Every word she spoke clashed against his memories. He remembered the invasion of Earth, the desperate nights when humans prayed for a miracle, the countless funerals. Yet here was the heir of that terrible empire, saying that humans had something greater than her people ever knew. Her voice softened. I do not bow for forgiveness. Forgiveness cannot be given so easily. I bow because I wish to belong, not as a conqueror, not as a ruler. I bow as someone who wishes to learn from you, if you will allow it. The words hung in the air like heavy chains around Daniel's heart. He had dreamed of victory, dreamed of aliens on their knees. But now that it was here, it did not feel like triumph. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of whether to step forward or to turn back. He lowered his weapon slightly, though his eyes never left hers. You think bowing erases the blood? You think it makes the dead rise again? Her lips trembled, and for the first time a tear slipped down her cheek. No, nothing will erase it. Nothing will bring back those lost. I know this truth, soldier. I know it better than anyone. My people are gone, and I carry their sins. But perhaps something can begin again if only one human can accept me. Daniel's breath caught. The battlefield was silent except for her words. Around them lay the ashes of two great armies, the bones of hatred and the ruins of pride. And here in the middle of it all, a single alien princess bowed before a human soldier, asking not for power but for a chance, for a moment. Daniel saw not a princess, not an enemy, but a person, broken, fragile, reaching out for a future she could not build alone. He did not answer her yet. His heart was torn between fury and mercy, but deep inside he felt the weight of the moment. He knew this was not just about him or her or even the war. This was about something far greater, because in that bow, in that simple act of surrender, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Daniel's fingers pressed tightly against his rifle. He could hear his own breath, rough and uneven, in the silence of the battlefield. The alien princess still knelt before him, her silver robes stained with ash. Her glowing eyes looked up at him, full of sorrow. Inside him a storm raged. His mind shouted at him to remember the pain, to remember the destruction her people had caused. His heart, however, whispered something different, a voice that told him there was more to this moment than vengeance. He thought of the friends he had lost. He saw their faces in his memory. Mark, who had laughed in the campfires before battle. Sarah, who had sung softly when the soldiers felt broken. Captain Reeve, who had led them with courage until the day he fell under alien fire. They were gone, buried under the weight of war. Their voices would never return. How could he forgive the daughter of the empire that had killed them? And yet, how could he not listen to her? Daniel's voice cracked as he spoke. You talk about learning from us, about starting again. But do you understand what your people did? They burned our homes. They killed children. They turned the skies black with fire. You stood beside them while we suffered. Why should I believe you now? The princess lowered her head again, tears slipping down her pale cheeks. Her voice was heavy but steady. You should not believe me easily. I do not deserve your trust. My people thought themselves gods among the stars. We thought you were nothing but dust waiting to be swept away. But when we fought you, we discovered something our pride could not understand. You humans, you do not give up. Even when everything is lost, you keep moving forward. Daniel's grip loosened slightly. Her words echoed in his heart, stirring memories he had long buried. He remembered the nights when humanity's cities were under fire. He remembered the small groups of survivors who rebuilt shelters from rubble. He remembered holding hands with strangers, promising that tomorrow would still come. She was right. Humans had endured when they should have fallen. But still, could he forgive? Daniel's eyes hardened. You speak of hope, but your fleets killed hope. You say you admire us, but admiration does not heal wounds. My people buried millions because of you, and now you want me to, what? Accept you, protect you. The princess trembled, but her eyes did not turn away. I know what I ask is heavy. I know I cannot erase the blood that stains my name, but look at me, soldier. I am not a queen. I am not a ruler. I am a survivor, just like you. My empire is gone. My people are ash. All I have left is this choice, to bow before you, to admit that humanity has something greater than we ever had. If even one of you can accept me, then maybe there can be something beyond war. Her words fell into Daniel's heart like drops of rain on dry ground. He wanted to scream. He wanted to reject her, to tell her that peace was a lie, that nothing could wash away the sins of her people. But when he looked into her eyes, he saw not a conqueror, not a princess, but a soul as broken as his own. He turned his gaze away, his throat tight. The ruins around him seemed to whisper with the voices of the dead, and he wondered what they would say if they stood here now. Would they curse him if he accepted her? Or would they tell him that humanity's strength was not in hate, but in mercy? Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on his shoulders. This was not just his decision. Whatever he chose now would echo beyond this battlefield. It would shape the way humans and aliens remembered each other for generations. His chest rose and fell with a heavy breath. When he opened his eyes again, his gaze locked onto the princess once more. She was still kneeling, still waiting, still hoping, and in that moment Daniel realized the truth. This was not about her. It was about him, about what it meant to be human. Would he let hatred guide him? Or would he prove that humanity was more than just survivors of war? The conflict inside him burned brighter than any battle he had ever fought, and the choice stood before him, waiting. The battlefield around them was silent, but inside Daniel's heart, a war was still raging. The smoke hung in the air like a shroud, and the broken flags of both sides lay torn across the ruins. He stood, tall, his rifle still in his hands, but his spirit felt heavier than ever before. Princess Araya remained kneeling before him. Her silver hair brushed the ground, her robe stained with ash and dirt. Her shoulders trembled, but her voice had been steady when she spoke. She was not asking for pity. She was not demanding power. She was asking for something far more difficult: acceptance. Daniel could not move. Every muscle in his body fought against itself. One part of him screamed to reject her, to leave her in the dust as her empire had left his people in flames. But another part, a softer voice deep within, whispered that this moment was different. This was not about revenge anymore. This was about what kind of man he wanted to be, and what kind of future humanity would build. His eyes scanned the ruins. Around him lay the bodies of both humans and aliens. The ground was heavy with blood that had no color, only sorrow. In death, friend and enemy looked the same. War had stripped away the illusions of pride and power. All that was left was pain. Daniel's throat tightened as memories came rushing back. He saw the burning cities of Earth, the ships falling from the sky. He remembered the cries of children clutching their mothers in the dark shelters. He remembered the sound of silence after every battle, when only the wind dared to move. These wounds were carved into his soul, and now the daughter of the empire that caused it all knelt before him. He whispered to himself, almost too softly to hear. What am I supposed to do? The princess lifted her head slightly, her glowing eyes searching his face. Her voice was gentle, like a fragile flame fighting against the cold. You are supposed to choose. I cannot demand anything from you. I can only bow and hope. The rest is in your hands. Daniel's jaw clenched. He felt like the weight of the entire galaxy had been placed on his shoulders. One decision made here in the ruins could change everything. If he rejected her, perhaps she would die alone, and the last of her people's story would end with dust. If he accepted her, perhaps humanity would carry not only their own future, but hers as well. But was he ready for that burden? He thought of Captain Reeve, the man who had led them with courage. Before the final battle, the captain had spoken words that now burned in Daniel's heart. We fight not to destroy, but to prove that humanity deserves the stars. Remember that no matter what happens. Those words now echoed louder than the sound of guns. Humanity had not fought only for survival. They had fought to show they were more than anger, more than hate. If Daniel turned his back now, would he not betray that very truth? Yet the anger inside him still clawed at his chest. He looked at her and saw the faces of those he had lost. Could he carry their memory and still offer his hand to the one tied to their deaths? The silence stretched longer. The smoke swirled slowly, as if the world itself waited for his answer. Daniel lowered his rifle, though his grip remained firm. His voice was low but filled with raw emotion. You think Boeing fixes everything? You think this makes us even? My people's graves cannot be undone. Her eyes shimmered, and her reply came soft as falling rain. No, I know nothing can erase the graves, nothing can make us even. But perhaps something can begin. A seed, a step. If even one human can accept me, then maybe my people's shadow does not have to be the only thing left behind. Daniel looked at her for a long time. In her face he saw not a proud princess, but a broken soul asking for a chance to walk a new path. He felt the fury inside him battling the voice of his captain, battling the whisper of hope that humanity had carried through the darkest nights. His hands shook. His chest felt like it would break apart. The weight of choice was crushing him. And yet he knew. The decision had to be made. The ruins around them seemed frozen in time. The smoke curled slowly into the sky, and the silence of the battlefield pressed against Daniel's ears. He felt like the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for him to speak. Princess Araya still knelt before him. Her robes were dirty, her hair covered with ash, but her posture was steady. She did not beg with frantic words. She did not demand with pride. She only waited, her glowing eyes fixed on him, carrying both sorrow and fragile hope. Daniel's heart pounded. His hands trembled against his rifle. For days, weeks, and years, he had fought against her people. He had lost so much. Friends, family, and even parts of himself. Anger still burned inside him, but beneath it was something else, something he could not ignore. He remembered his captain's words again. We fight not to destroy, but to prove that humanity deserves the stars. Those words were not about vengeance. They were about showing that humans were different, that even in the darkest nights they could still choose light. Daniel lowered his rifle completely. The metal clattered softly against the broken ground as he let it rest by his side. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. Princess Araya, I cannot forgive what your people did. I cannot bring back the dead and I cannot erase the pain, but... He paused, his chest tightening. His next words came with both strength and trembling. But I can choose not to continue the cycle of hate. I can choose to see you as more than the shadow of your empire. If you truly wish to walk among us, then rise. Not as an enemy, not as a ruler. Rise as one of us. The princess's lips parted in shock. For a moment, her face seemed frozen, as if she could not believe what she had heard. Then slowly tears filled her glowing eyes. Her trembling hands pressed against the ground as she lifted herself up. When she stood, she was taller than Daniel, her figure still regal even in ruin. Yet in her eyes, there was no pride left. Only gratitude, only relief, she whispered, her voice breaking. You would accept me, even after everything. Daniel's gaze was steady, though his heart still carried pain. Acceptance does not erase the past, but maybe it can build a future. If humanity's strength is endurance, then maybe we can endure even this. For the first time since the war began, the princess smiled. It was a small smile, faint and trembling, but it carried the warmth of a dawn breaking after a long night. Together, they began to walk through the ruins. Human soldiers who survived stared in shock. Some raised their weapons in anger, their eyes full of rage. To them, she was still the enemy, the daughter of the empire that had tried to destroy Earth. But when they saw Daniel, one of their own, Walking beside her with steady steps, they lowered their guns in hesitation. Daniel did not protect her because she was royalty. He did not shield her because of her title. He walked beside her because he had made a choice. Humanity would not be defined by hate. Every step felt heavy but also powerful. The ruins whispered with the ghosts of the dead, and Daniel could almost hear their voices. He prayed they would understand. He prayed they would see that this was not betrayal, but a new beginning. The soldiers around them murmured, some in anger, some in disbelief, but Daniel's voice cut through their whispers. She bowed before a human. She asked to rise with us. If we are truly human, we will not answer her with chains. We will answer her with a chance. The silence that followed was sharp, but no one stepped forward to challenge him. Even the harshest heart seemed shaken by the sight of an alien princess bowing before a soldier and rising as something more. Daniel looked at Araya, and she bowed her head once more, not in shame, but in respect. And for the first time, Daniel felt the weight inside him lighten, if only a little. This was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. The smoke had not cleared from the battlefield, but something had already changed in the hearts of those who survived. When Daniel lowered his rifle and told the alien princess to rise, the silence around them grew heavier than any explosion. The surviving human soldiers watched with wide eyes. Some clenched their fists in anger, their faces red with disbelief. Others simply stared, unable to understand what they were seeing. The alien princess, daughter of the empire that had tried to burn Earth, now stood beside one of their own. One soldier, his arm wrapped in blood-soaked bandages, spat on the ground. "This is madness, Daniel. She doesn't deserve mercy. She deserves chains or death," another shouted, voice trembling with rage. "My family died because of them. And you want to walk beside her? Have you lost your mind?" Daniel's heart burned at their words. He understood their anger because he carried the same fire inside him. He too had lost people he loved. He too had stood among graves that should never have been dug. But when he looked at Araya, he saw not a queen demanding power, not an enemy raising a sword, but someone who had chosen to kneel and surrender her pride. He raised his voice, steady and strong. "She bowed before me, before us. She asked not for power, not for a throne, but for a chance. If we answer her with hate, then we become no better than the empire that tried to erase us." The soldiers murmured, divided between rage and confusion. Some lowered their weapons, uncertain. Others held them tighter, unwilling to trust. Araya stepped forward then, her eyes glowing softly, her voice carrying sorrow that shook the air. "Humans, I do not ask you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness. My name is stained with the blood of your people. But hear me, I am no longer your enemy. My empire is gone. My people are dust. I bow to you because you have what we never had. You endure. You rise from ashes. I only wish to walk among you, not as a ruler, but as one who wishes to learn." Her words did not erase the hatred. Some soldiers still glared with burning eyes, but others looked at her differently. They saw the cracks in her voice, the truth in her trembling hands. They saw someone broken just as they were. Daniel stood taller. His armor was scratched, his body bruised, but his spirit carried a weight heavier than steel. He turned to his comrades and spoke again. "We fought this war to prove that humanity deserves the stars, that we are more than just survivors. If we chain her, if we kill her, what do we prove? That we are just like them? No. We prove our strength by choosing a different path." Slowly, one soldier lowered his weapon, then another. The tension in the air thinned, though anger still lingered. Not everyone agreed. Not everyone would accept her. But a seed had been planted, and Daniel could feel it growing. He looked at Araya and gave a small nod. She lowered her head in respect, not in shame this time, but in gratitude. Together they walked through the ruins. The ground crunched beneath their boots, carrying the weight of two worlds. Soldiers followed at a distance, still whispering, still unsure, but none stopped them. The path was not easy. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. He could already feel the burden pressing on him. He would face questions, challenges, even betrayal from his own kind. Araya would face hatred at every step. But for now, she was not alone, and humanity was not unchanged. In the middle of smoke and ruins, something fragile had been born, a possibility. A chance for two enemies to walk the same path, not with chains or swords, but with the faint hope of peace. The galaxy would remember this day, not as the end of war, but as the beginning of something greater. And Daniel, though tired and scarred, walked forward knowing one truth. Humanity's strength was not only to fight. It was to choose again and again to rise above hate. The ruins of the battlefield became silent over the next days. Smoke faded into the wind, and broken steel turned cold under the stars. But in the silence, whispers began. Soldiers, survivors, and wanderers all carried one story back to their people. The alien princess had bowed before a human. At first, many refused to believe it. They thought it was a lie, a trick, or a story made to give people hope. But then more voices joined. Different units, scattered survivors, even broken ships drifting in orbit, all spoke of the same thing. They had seen it. They had felt it. The moment when an enemy who once ruled the stars bent her knees before a soldier of Earth. For humanity, the story spread like fire. In the streets of ruined cities, people whispered it at night. Mothers told it to children who were afraid of the dark. Soldiers repeated it to each other in quiet camps, their hands still shaking from war. The bow became a symbol not of weakness but of victory. It showed that even the greatest enemy could fall, not just by force but by respect. For Araya, every step forward was heavy. She walked among humans who looked at her with suspicion, fear, and hatred. Some spat at her feet. Others refused to speak when she passed. But she never raised her head in pride. She accepted their anger, their pain, their mistrust. She carried it as if it were her punishment. Daniel stayed close to her. Many questioned him. Many shouted at him. Some even called him a traitor for protecting her. But he never bent. His heart was steady, his voice clear. She bowed and I accepted her. If you cannot trust her, then trust me. His words did not erase the anger, but they carried weight. Daniel had fought on the front lines. He had bled beside his comrades. He had lost family just as they had. If he, a man who had every reason to hate, could choose a different path, then perhaps there was meaning in it. One night, under the broken stars, Araya sat beside a fire with Daniel. The wind carried the smell of ash, but also the faint sound of laughter from soldiers nearby. For the first time, the camp did not fall silent when she entered. She looked at Daniel, her eyes reflecting the flames. In my world, to bow was shame. To kneel was weakness. But when I bowed before you, I felt something else. I felt free. I chose it. Not because I was defeated, but because I finally saw something worth kneeling for. Daniel's chest tightened at her words. He stared into the fire and spoke quietly. You didn't kneel to me, Araya. You knelt to what humanity stands for, the right to rise again no matter how many times we're broken. She smiled softly, a smile touched with sorrow. Then may I walk with you, Daniel? Not as a princess, not as a ruler, but as one who chooses this path. He nodded, firm and certain. You already are. From that night the story grew larger. It spread beyond Earth, carried by travelers and scattered fleets. Other alien races, once loyal to the fallen empire, heard the whispers. They heard how a human soldier had accepted the bow of a princess and turned it into hope. Some laughed at it, some denied it, but others listened. And those who listened began to wonder if perhaps humanity was not a threat to fear, but a force to follow. Years later, historians would look back at that single moment on the battlefield. They would write of wars, of fleets, of destruction, but above all, they would write of the bow. Children would learn the tale in schools. Soldiers would carve it into stone. Leaders would recall it when signing treaties of peace. It was not the fire of weapons that shaped the future. It was not the roar of ships or the strength of armies. It was a bow, a simple human moment, where hate could have ruled, but mercy was chosen instead. And at the center of it all stood Daniel, the soldier who carried scars, and Araya, the princess who laid down her crown. Together they became more than survivors. They became the beginning of a legend. The galaxy remembered them, not for the war they ended, but for the peace they dared to imagine.